So, good evening, everyone, and welcome to episode 2 of the Pearls of Wisdom podcast. I'm Peter Williams, and I'm joined here by the absolutely wonderful Nathalie Sommer. Just to give you the quick rundown, I tell you what, her credentials are impressive at best. It's because she is a certified relationship and intimacy coach. She's a women's transformational coach. She's also a worldwide speaker and international workshop facilitator. And I tell you what, if you believe that I globetrot, you should see this woman. This woman is going left, right, and center. And I think I'm glad the earth is circular, because otherwise Nat would never find her way back. It's pretty much the case. I just want to speak because Nathalie is amazing, because she is like really finding her groove. She's supporting and transforming women's and couples relationships across the world. It's interesting because as we teed this up, I actually had trouble trying to pin a time down with Nathalie, because believe it or not, I think sometimes with isolation and lockdown, relationships really do come to the fore. So, the timing of this is absolutely, I think, spot on and very guided, I like to say. But, Nat, your work does speak for itself. You've been featured in the Southern China Morning Post, which is, of course, Hong Kong's massive, it's a big one in Asia, realistically, Southeast Asia. Jetstar Mag, and also you've just been given a column in Vivapost, the online magazine in Switzerland. Well done. Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm very excited about that.
And just for those who don't know, Nathalie has lived in Australia. She is originally from Switzerland, lived in Australia, lived in Hong Kong, but travelled Southeast Asia extensively. And as she's joining us today from Spain, of all places. So it's unbelievable. And honestly, Nathalie, you've also felt the brunt of a lot of these, the COVID isolations in Spain, because it's quite strict over there, hasn't it?
Extremely strict, yeah.
So, but it's awesome, and thank you so much for taking the time to join us this evening. And we're going to be jumping in, and this was all about, how to unlock and unblock those subconscious patterns that we do find in relationships. Now, it's been interesting because once this kind of got out there, I've had emails streaming in, and I'm thinking, you're asking the wrong person, I can have a look at relationships from a, obviously a very, very intuitive standpoint, from what I see and, tapping into things. But, you're now working so in depth with this topic. Which is amazing. But let's just, for everybody here, because obviously there's a whole bunch of new people here, how did you find your way, and what was the appeal to jump into this field in particular?
Good question. Well, I used to do readings as well and energy healings. And as you will be familiar, Peter, a lot of people come to you about love. They want to either find love, when will I meet the one? Or I'm in a relationship. The one. Where is he or where is she?
Hang on, you told me 5 years ago this was supposed to happen. Why hasn't this happened?
Exactly, probably because you blocked somewhere. But we'll get into that later.
Exactly right, isn't it? Yes.
And also people will go like, well, I'm in a relationship. We're having a really hard time. We're struggling. And then I would also have a lot of people coming to me because my partner is having an affair, or I just found out my partner's having an affair, or I'm having an affair. And as I was already doing life coaching, and I felt that similar to you, I could give support and I could help create certain breakthrough points, but I also felt limited in how I could actually support them. And I was listening to a podcast, and it was with an intimacy coach, and what she was speaking about really hit home. And I was like, wow, actually what she's saying resonates with me and in my marriage. And there is so much that we need to know or learn that nobody ever speaks about or teaches us about. So I wanted to learn from her. So I signed up to her certification. And as I did that, I obviously learned more about myself and the way how I'm showing up in a relationship, the way how I'm showing up in intimacy. And it really changed a lot because I feel like it's very easy to go and say, well, where is he? When am I going to meet the one? Or when I'm finally meeting the one? But I'm still not having all of my needs met. Or we're still fighting or arguing over the same things. And I was similar. So I felt like I finally met somebody, but I'm not having my needs met to the extent I would have liked. And, we project the blame on the other person. But, well, you're not giving me and you're not doing. And it's all like, but you're not what I want you to be. And I realized, hang on, now you have to take self-responsibility and do the work yourself. So that changed my life, and it made me realize it's also my passion to help to do the same with couples, help them to create the intimacy and closeness that they've been seeking because they've been living apart and they haven't really had an understanding of the other person, of maybe what their needs are, how they're showing up and why they're showing up in a certain way. And also for individuals, to help them feel really connected to themselves and be aware of where they are blocking or what it is that they really want and how are they not open to that. So
it's a big thing. But before we go any further, I want to chime in here and ask a very, very important question. And I think it's something that it's almost like very similar to the field that, where I'm in and that you started with and all thing, being a reader and a psychic, what is it exactly? But, I think a key thing here, I'm talking about relationship, intimacy is a big word. And I think it's kind of like got its own generic stereotype spin on it. So let's have a look now that you've, obviously you've done so much more with this, you've learned so much more. What is intimacy? How do you break down intimacy? How is it different from what you might, for example, when you, like you said, you've gone off, you've learned so much more about yourself, so much more about the needs of your relationship and all this kind of stuff. So what was intimacy to you before you started doing this, and what is it to you now?
Yeah, very good point. And I think intimacy, we relate to it as something sexual. And that's probably what I would have at some point. But intimacy, and actually I ask all of my coaching clients that, well, what does intimacy really look like to you? And I guide them through a process. And none of them will refer to it as something sexual. Nobody has. It's usually wanting to be really close with somebody else, to be held, to feel comfortable, to be seen. Basically, I call this into me I see, into you I see. So basically, you drop all the masks and you reveal yourself fully to the person and being really close. So you're letting everything go, and that could be a moment of stillness. It could be a moment of doing something really nice. It could be a moment of just holding hands. It could be having a very vulnerable or open conversation. And to me, that creates closeness, and intimacy creates connection. Connection creates intimacy.
Okay, so I can't help myself, and you know me and my humour, so it doesn't necessarily involve having to get the Kama Sutra handbook in this case.
Not necessarily. I mean, that will be a lovely, bring that in too. Absolutely.
Oh, okay,
who probably doesn't want to have that? But I feel that when we are in a long-term relationship, and obviously, the sexual side of things often tends to fade. And still, like, people, they want to just feel that closeness to the other person. That's usually, they want to be intimate and close with another person. And maybe that can be sexual, but usually when you actually drop everything behind the layers, or you look behind the layers, it is just wanting to be present and close with somebody else.
And I suppose there's a connection, and the way that you were talking about that just then, that closeness, or that stillness and that real connection, and when you have those moments, I'd almost kind of like, because it's funny, like, especially as having been on the receiving end of yourself, and for myself, anybody who's been in this world, most people who have come to me at some point, when am I going to meet the soulmate? So, but I suppose, once we have a better understanding of what intimacy is going to be for the self and for the individual, you're going to have more of an idea of what you're actually looking for in a partner, aren't you?
Mm-hmm.
And it's going to be an important, because projection, reflection, the self-work is a big thing. Now let's get into this. Now let's start getting into, because we've got to, like you said, we've got to pull these masks off. We've got to get deep here. And it's always an interesting one, because it's been amazing and humbling, but it's like, like I said, I've been receiving these emails since I've put this up and I'm like, you're asking the wrong person, because I'm not the coach here. And I'm not the facilitator. I could work on one side of things, but not this season. So, but it's interesting. Now we're talking about here, the patterns, because it is, and these emails that I have been receiving, they're going, I'm at this age and all I'm looking for, but why do I attract this person? Why is this happening to me? Or why is this behavior happening? So, when we're going to ask this, why do we find that we keep experiencing these patterns or being hurt almost in the same fashion or in the same way? Why does this happen to us?
Yeah. Well, you probably will attract different people, different women, different men, but you probably will feel similar in those relationships. And it comes down to past relationship experiences, but also your childhood. Your childhood has a huge impact in the way how you feel, in the way how you show up. What have your parents been like in their relationship? Were they close? Were they not close? What were their viewpoints? And then childhood experiences. Probably you might have had some sort of experience where you felt, okay, well, I have to be really independent, or I don't want to get hurt, so I need to put up that protection. And with that, that's deeply ingrained into our subconsciousness. And we then have these protections or these layers around us that we either have created the belief from that experience or from our parents, and then we show up in that way.
Okay.
But also that experience is usually what we probably have that deepest desire to have a certain experience. But because we have had that hurt or that wound from somewhere along our lives, we keep ourselves safe. So we want to experience something in particular, but we also keep ourselves safe. So for example, that could be you being really independent, or you feeling like, well, okay, well, I don't want to be coming across too needy, so I better show that I don't want to get hurt, so I better have a foot out the door and show that I'm really independent. Or it could be that you become really needy because maybe somewhere in your life you had an abandonment experience, and so you feel like, okay, well, I just need to hold on to that person really tight, and the more I give, the more I will receive. And then you're putting yourself out there so much that you realize, well, hang on, but I'm not really experiencing anything back, but I'm too scared to leave them because I'm worried I might have that abandonment wound coming up again, because maybe one of your parents left when you were younger, or maybe there might have just been some sort of incident where you've experienced a deep hurt of abandonment. So when we then keep showing up in that way, we also either keep that person at a distance, or we're becoming too close. And, then the other person, they probably might have a trigger coming up with that too, because they would have had some sort of experience. So often what happens is, yeah, and it's like a mirror. It's because they become like a mirror to us. So everything that you keep experiencing, it's like, well, you asking, well, is it just them? No, it's you. They're just showing you a mirror of what it is that either needs healing, or that needs to be looked at, or that needs to be rewired.
Yeah, and that's that's interesting, because I suppose it's hard, and I think it's, I understand and I totally appreciate the level of psychology that goes behind this, but I think sometimes it's very easily, glossed over by many individuals when it comes to, relationships and this kind of thing, because as you're saying in the beginning, it's easy to project and say, hang on, that's your stuff, not mine. So, then it's like, that's just not fair on me. I'm out of here. It's done. But of course, if we don't reflect on and do that work, so, it's in here. It's like, so we have to do this internal work, don't we? We have to have this reflection. And I suppose realistically, in your line of work, you're going to be, you're talking about that going back to childhood. Like, this is some pretty in-depth stuff, but like you said, this is where the subconscious patterns are going to be held. And I suppose part of your job will be to help discover that, uncover that, and obviously work through that.
Absolutely. And it's not that you need to go and relieve trauma, but it's just knowing, well, hang on, just the awareness. Oh, wow. Now I know why I'm doing that. Now I know why I'm feeling hurt. Now I know why I'm keeping somebody at bay. Now I know why I'm being clingy. It's just for you to realize why you're doing that. And when you have that awareness, like, oh, wow, okay, great. Well, I don't have to be living in that fear anymore. Like, that fear happened. Let that be in the past. And that is easier said than done. Yeah. But then to have that awareness, it also gives you then the tools to go like, right, actually, I'm showing up in that way again. I'm showing up in my fear. I'm showing up in my anger, whatever it is that you're showing up in. And now I can take the space to go like, right, you know what? This is not my hurt that I need to live. And give yourself the support that you need so you can open up to what it is that you deeply desire or that you want to experience.
And I like that when you're talking about before, it's like how, and you can see it, and I've seen it with clients, because, I've seen clients over the time as well, where it's interesting, like it's almost like head and heart aspect, your heart does want something, but then your head's like, I always say your heart's the child and your head's the parent. So your heart's like, I really want this. It's like, I really want to go with this person. This person might be the best thing. And the head kind of kicks in and says, no. I don't think they're the ideal person for you. I don't think this is going to really work. But it's also interesting too, because as much as we've got to be aware of that, we can't also we can't let the heart overrule us. At the same time, we can't let the head. Otherwise, the head's going to keep us away, and the heart might get us too close, like you said. And I can't help it because it's almost like it reminds me of. I'm pretty sure it's Dirty Dancing reference here. Of like it's like it is. It takes two to tango. It's like this is your goddamn space, and this is my goddamn space. And if we kind of respect that and understand it with each other, then we can actually have that nice balance, and we can work that through together. Because it is, I suppose, you can be too fragile or defensive of you, or protective of yourself is probably the better word. And then sometimes you can be, I suppose, going too hard at a relationship at times. And, you know, like you said, you just have to be aware of these particular things within yourself. Because that way, because that's me, I suppose, at the end of the day, if we can't be aware of it, we're just going to continue to show up in this way, aren't we?
Absolutely. And I think, you know, if you're okay with that, no problem. But it does go back to then saying, well, everybody else is to blame or you're to blame. And that's when relationship trouble happens, because when you then feel like, right, I'm keep on being hurt. And, you know, usually we don't even understand why we're being hurt. That's why it's important to know why we hurt. But then we just react and we project. And that's when usually relationships down the track, they fall apart. Because we go like, well, you're not giving me, I'm not receiving, you're doing, you're not doing. And I really feel there can be so much avoided when we just go like, well, hang on. Well, first of all, what's going on inside of me? But then also to communicate that, by the way, when you do this, this is what happens inside of me. It would really help me if you could do X, Y, and Z. I would feel supported. Are you able to support me in that? And when we just, instead of just saying, you're not doing, but we actually explain to them why we feel hurt. Usually the other partner will go like, oh, well, now I can see why you're being a bit crazy. Now I can see why you're throwing a tantrum. So, you know, they'll have more awareness. So there can be more empathy, and they're more so willing to show up and support you and go like, right, yeah, okay. Well, of course, I don't want you to be angry or sad or frustrated. So let me help you. And a lot can be avoided.
So obviously communication is going to be a huge factor in trying to, avoid that, again, someone pointed out in the chat here, spaghetti arms. Make sure we don't have spaghetti arms. We've got a nice frame between ourselves. But it's interesting too, as much as I know I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit, and I do apologize for this one, but, looking at this, we're talking about trying to, we're aware now that the subconscious, sometimes there's somewhere along the line that has obviously put us in that mode in the way that we're reacting or connecting with partners, okay? Now, what is possible, and I know it's hard without the specifics, and everybody's an individual, but what are some things, communication obviously be one of them, but what are some other things that might help people to help them to become aware of a block? It's something that they could do for themselves.
Yeah. So next time you're dating and you feel that the other person's not showing up in a certain way and you're feeling like a deep hurt, you're feeling like, well, and you start running a story in your mind. Oh, well, why don't they like me? And what's wrong with me? And why is, you just run a story. And you run a story, and that story is fueled by hurt. Or next time when you have an argument with your partner and you just there's a charge behind that, and you get angry or frustrated, you just get really sad. You know that there is a hurt and you're running a story. You'll be running some sort of story that you'll be like, oh, well, he never or she nevers, and I'm poor me. There'll be some sort of a story there that will be going through your mind. And you have to listen to the story because you'll be running just going.
Oh, it's amazing how quick that loop goes into play, doesn't it? When it happens like that. Yeah.
Yeah. So you have that self-chatter, and you will either be validating or you'll be blaming or you'll be doing something. But really deep down, you'll feel a hurt. So when you have that experience, just go hang on, right now I'm feeling a deep hurt because most likely there's not a need being met. And when you feel that hurt, it's to go well, hang on, I'm going to take a step back. And instead of projecting or reacting a certain way, I'm just going to take a step back and just notice what's going on. What's the story that I'm telling myself? Because once you actually realize what the story that's going on, you go right, hang on, this is actually what I'm lacking right now. And as you're taking the step away, it's what I tell my clients is, right, what can you do now to support yourself? And that is you taking self-responsibility. So it's like, all right now I'm running the story of I give so much and I'm not receiving, for example. That's my story. I keep on giving, and
I think that
but
comes
I
from
need
our
something.
work, Nat. We're givers.
Yeah.
I'm like,
well, yeah.
that rhetoric sounds awfully familiar. Oh, like,
yeah.
hang on. You shouldn't be reading me. We're not coaching me, you know.
Yeah, so I'm in my caretaker, and my caretaker is just giving, and then in my relationship, I'm doing all of this and I'm not receiving, and then whatever story I start running on, you're just really mean and poor me, and I'm not feeling loved. So I go into this complete story of not actually having my need met, and that need stems. I know where it stems from, but in that moment I go like, okay, well, what can I do to support myself? So I take a breath, and then I tell myself, you're loved, you're enough. You can give yourself what you need. But also then I look at, well, actually, where do I need to set my boundaries in that? Because clearly I'm giving so much, and then I'm becoming resentful from giving so much. So where do I need to take self-responsibility? What do I need to set a boundary in?
Yeah.
And then, I take self-responsibility. So that really helps me, realizing what I'm doing, taking a breath, then I self-soothe. I go like, it's okay, you're loved, you're validated. All the things I actually want my partner to tell me, I tell myself. And there's this thing that, it sounds a bit weird, but there's this thing that our brain won't know if somebody else is telling it or we're telling it ourselves. So I'm just telling myself what I want to hear. And then I already calm myself down, because the story I'm running is now it's a supportive story. It's like, it's okay, you are loved, you are validated, you are enough. It's okay, you're open to receiving. And then once I've calmed my farm, I will talk to my, it's important to calm your farm first.
You have to, yeah, okay, yep.
And then I go and talk about it if I feel it's still relevant. And to say, by the way, what really would help me to feel supported is if you could do X and Y, and it will provide me with this. It's really important that we let the other person know what it will actually provide you with. So if you want support in something, or just saying, oh, can you help me? Let them know what it will provide you. If you help me to cook dinner, then I will feel like I don't have to take the whole burden. I will feel really loved. So let them know how I can provide, what it will provide you with. Because again, the partner will be able to step forward and go like, right, of course, I don't want you to feel that way. I'm happy to provide. Mm. So that's what I find is really powerful, because we take self-responsibility, but then also we become clear on what it is that we really need support in, and then how to voice that. And for example, for people that are dating, which I know that's for a relationship, but also I really I get people ask me, so what are the sentences to say when I'm dating somebody? What's the right thing to say? Well, there's no right thing to say. It's just be open and be honest and just be yourself.
And I suppose it's such a key thing, and I think it's something that I know yourself and your journey, me. It's like we've both of us have also learned that continually along, and it's something. It's always like that trust factor with what we do as well. That lesson never stops. We have to continually, kind of catch ourselves, calm our feelings. Like, no, it's okay. We've got to believe in this. And I suppose it's also, but it's. I've always say to people, one of the key things is in any situation is you have to learn and you have to teach yourself to be brutally honest with yourself. That's not something that's very easy to do. It's not something that, it just happens overnight. It takes a lot of practice. And I'd also imagine, that level of, you're giving yourself that kind of reassurance, and it's a bit of self-love realistically when you're trying to change that rhetoric that's going on in your head. So obviously, that's going to be obviously quite important to build that up, and because that's self-esteem. But I think I really like the idea of I always say, I suppose you do need to know what it means to you. It's one thing to say I need this, but then I think it's taking it that extra step further, which I think is fantastic, to kind of go, but if you do give me this is what it will help me with. And I think that's a real pivotal point a lot of people end up missing in the conversation, or do not know how to communicate properly. All right. So, just kind of running with the program here. So that's a good one, like looking at where that's from. What happens if we're, let's say the other way around? Let's say we're in a relationship where, you know, it just seems to me like whatever we're doing or whatever I'm doing doesn't seem to please them, whatever else, but I kind of just retreat into myself because that's me. Like, I want this, I don't want to leave this relationship, I don't want to hurt. I know that as human beings, fear is so programmed into our mind, and hurt and pain, we do almost anything to avoid it. And sometimes to our own detriment, and especially in relationships, unfortunately. But if we have a situation like that, what kind of skills, or what kind of, you know, once we'll call it a voiceover, what would you suggest to be really instilling yourself if it was you in that defensive position and it was just like there's nothing that you can really feel like you can do? You feel like you're helpless, but you're in this relationship and this is all you've got. What kind of things would you say to that person?
Yeah, I mean, that is a tricky one, because you're so ruled by fear, which is understandable, and that fear will probably go like, right, and you know, with that fear you're probably taking up roles, and you might again overextend yourself, and then you feel like, okay, well, I'm trying everything, I'm not having my needs met, and that person is just not budging in any way. I mean, first of all, I mean, it does require brutal honesty. Is that really how you want to be for another 10, 15, 20 years, for 30 years? This is really like what you want to be. But also, I have also experienced where their partner might just be so closed off, but when, you know, and obviously that will be triggering you when they're being in that way. You know, all that shit, a lot of different shit will come up, like rejection, abandonment, all these different emotions will be coming up. So in that moment, and then, like you said, naturally what we do is we then retreat too, because we want to keep ourselves safe. So then you have one person keeping themselves safe, the other person keeping themselves safe, and then you have that distance. So if you then go like, right, okay, well, what happens if I would just communicate differently? What would happen then? What if I just, instead of closing myself up, what if I just open myself up in different ways and not showing up in my hurt? What would happen then? What will happen with that person? And if you know that you at least feel like, right, I'm giving myself what I need, I'm taking care of myself, and I'm just showing up in who I am. And I feel like that's really the best you can do, is just take care of yourself, look after yourself, do, as the things are coming up, do your own self-healing, and just see what happens then, because you might then not be as reactive to their situation. And if you then still feel you've done all this work and there's nothing changing, I have to go like, well, is this really the relationship that you want to be in?
And it's interesting. I'm seeing a common theme kind of popping up here, and and it's not something that I suppose a lot of people talk about, in the fact of like, when you really start to examine, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but when you really start to examine possibly the issues that are happening, like either with the person that you're attracting or what's happening in a relationship. But there's this big aspect of like, if we're going to get it right, or if we're going to really be courageous enough to approach it and make it better, in essence, we are self-healing, are we not?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely. And that is painful. That is usually a painful process.
Rip
to
that
go,
Band-Aid
okay.
off.
I'm allowing myself to feel the feels. First of all, that is painful. I'm allowing myself to feel the feels, but also to then go like, right, I mean, you know, do this for yourself. You have to just do this for yourself, because when there's pain, there's healing. And after healing, there's usually, you just feel better in yourself. Like you can go like, right, you know what, I don't keep on showing up in my hurts. I'm not closing off. I can express what it is that I need or that I want. And again, if then you being somebody that can provide, if you still choose to stay there and you're okay with that, fine. Like there's no judgment in that.
Yeah.
But also, if you then probably feel a bit more courageous, because again, you will have set new boundaries. You have greater self-love for yourself. And then you probably go like, well, hang on, if I'm really honest, first of all, I've just learned I can take care of my own needs. So I feel like we put on so much pressure on relationships. We're like, well, I want this from you, I want that from you. But when we learn to take care of our own needs, we show up differently, and we come in not from that needy place. So then it's also probably easier for you to go like, right, I'm not receiving anything that I need, even though I've given it to myself. So why am I really here? Why am I really here? And it makes it easier to then make a decision. Do I want to stay or do I want to go?
And that's a big thing. And it's like self-worth. And, I've told many clients over the years of saying, I know, because it's amazing how many people, whether it's through fear or fear of being hurt, or sometimes they do say, oh, no, but I don't want to hurt them. But I think ultimately it's like, no, you don't want to hurt in yourself, and you don't want anybody throwing sticks and stones at you because of it. But at the same time, we have to do that, because otherwise we're not going to get that growth. And, both you and I know very, very strongly, one of the key things, and obviously both being spiritual people, one of the key laws of spirituality is there has to be growth. We can't stop growing. And I think, like you said, once you reach that, there's distance here and there's distance here, you've reached that stagnant or stalemate, there's no growth, and we're just kind of retreating from that. So, it's kind of interesting. But this kind of leads into the next part, which is interesting too. And I think this is it's another common theme. So we've explored the reasons behind it. Obviously, those subconscious blocks and patterns. We have to go back. We have to reflect. We have to look at ourselves, be honest with ourselves. But obviously, this is going to play a part. But is it just the subconscious? But why do people keep attracting the same type of partner? What is with this? Because I know I've hit it a lot of times with clients where I'm going, this is like the third time round we're going through in a session. We're going to try and sort this out. They're going, oh no. It's like, and then, I tell them otherwise, and all of a sudden they come back and they go, I did everything you told me not to do. And it's like, well, hence we're back in this position again. So what's going on with people attracting the same partner or same kind of qualities and stuff in a partner?
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's a few different reasons. It could be because they show up in a certain way that your parents have been showing up, maybe your father, your mother. So you will keep attracting the same, or you'll be drawn to the same person with the same traits. But also because they have that certain quality, probably, will keep triggering you in that way too. And you're just like, well, hang on, like, it's just like, maybe that partner might show up in a way of just being really closed off and just not communicating and not showing their feelings whatsoever. And that really reminds you of what your partner, but then you just might be drawn energetically to just people because it's just like, but there are also lessons for you to learn in going like, right, like your own self-worth. Well, what is it actually, like where I need to somewhere break the pattern because I keep attracting that same person, because again, like maybe even though it hurts, it's painful, but it also reminds you of safety of what that person or that parent represented you. So often if you actually have a look back, you will find you will have people coming in that will have similar traits to your mother or to your father, and you're naturally just drawn to that. And I do want to speak on that soulmate, and I get so many people coming in to see me as well.
Come on, please.
Oh my God, I've met the one. I've met the one, and he or she is amazing, and sex is amazing, and it's just fireworks, and it's just like just that intensity of just like that soulmate to connection. But when it comes to reality, it just does not work. There's so much pain, and it's really painful because you keep hurting each other so deeply, yet you just cannot leave each other. And people go like, oh, it's my twin flame, because you have this intensity of this feeling and this emotion. Go like, but we just have this strong chemistry, so it's got to be the one. And you just keep on holding on because you go like, it's the one, it's the one, it's the one. And I've never felt like this before. And, I'm sure everybody can probably relate to that at some point in their lives. But also chances are, and yeah, you know what? You probably might have had a past relationship, and you probably have this deep soulmate connection. You probably might have met in past lives, and you're recognizing each other again. But also in reality, in this life, if you're feeling this deep hurt and it's just so intense, it's more so that they might be showing up in a way for you to learn something. And just because you have this intensity doesn't mean that reality, it will be a healthy, harmonious relationship. And maybe it can turn into that, but it requires a lot of work from both people, because what you do is you have this intensity, this connection, but you just keep triggering each other in those deep hurts that can be stemming from a past life. It can be stemming from your upbringing. And it's like this intensity, but it's a toxic relationship if you're being really honest with yourself. And you can take self-responsibility. That person needs to take self-responsibility, but that's really hard. So in that case, I just say that's not your true soulmate, because when your soulmate comes in, it should feel harmonious. yeah, of course, it's never going to be just rainbow and butterflies. No relationship is.
Yeah.
No
And
relationship is.
it's always, again, it was almost like when coming back to it, it was almost like when I asked you, like, you know, what intimacy was, how you see it differently learning to it. And that's, I think there's that kind of stereotypical, you know, stigma attached to the word, or, you know, that soulmate, what it really is. And people just think it's going to be magic and it's going to be heaven, and, you know, and it should be. And that's me. But I like the word you use there as in terms of harmonious for a soulmate. And I think that really sums it up, because it's interesting. You pointed out there, what was kind of coming to my head, you're talking about, like, you know, as much as you might have a partner, you might think they're like the one, or it's like it's the soulmate because the chemistry is unbelievable, blah, blah, blah. But we all know, like, you know, just because you've got like a V8 supercar, yes, it can go really fast and it can rev really high, but if you rev it too much, the engine will still blow up. And guess what? You're parked on the side of the road and you've got no RACQ or ACV or roadside assistance to help you out. You're going, well, shit, now I'm stuck, people, and I've lost my soulmate. They've just gone off to the wind. And so I think we do have to be careful of that. But and I think, you know, the soulmate is, again, as much as I believe in that stuff, at the same time, I tend to find that I'm not terribly focused on it. I'm lucky, I'm happy in my love life, but it's just like, but it's so many people. It's like, again, I think I always say, come back to the self. And I think I love the way that it always comes back to, you know, I love that message. You keep saying self-responsibility. And as we know, if you can't, even in a relationship where you feel like, no, they need me. But even that's the case, you know, you're not good to them if you're broken down. And, you know, there's no point in kind of doing that. So, so sorry. I'm just having a quick look at the comments here. It's like, it's a very interesting comments going on. I knew there would be on the chat here as we're going along. But yeah, but it's also interesting here too. Like, what happens is, like, you know, you're talking about there again. I want you, if you can elaborate, when you're talking about when you meet a partner, you might be finding like there's something there about your mum or your dad. What do you mean by that? We're just drawn to those traits, or is that just inbuilt, or is that something that we can learn to fix? Is that something we're going to learn to avoid, or is that just something that we're going to have to learn to identify?
No, well, yeah, learn to identify. And, you know, that's not always the case, but often what we have experienced, you know, it's like, well, that's kind of what we've been taught. This is what our first experience was, that around relationship, we're like, oh, okay. And usually also the way how, you know, they have shown up, again, there would have been maybe some certain hurt around that has led us to showing up in life in a certain way, because maybe they've had their own struggles. And we absolutely have the opportunity now, I feel like more so than ever, because there's a lot more talk about this, how to be more authentic in ourselves, like not taking on all these beliefs and all these layers and all the things that we should or shouldn't be doing, or all the things that we have learned. We have this opportunity more than ever to go like, right, well, who do I really want to be? And actually, what is really authentic to me? Because also what happens is like, oh my God, I don't really want to be in the relationship of like my parents have. So you will try to do everything not to do that, to be that way. Or I don't want to be like my mother. I don't want to be like my father. So you will try to do everything that's not to them. But then you can also attract somebody that is the complete opposite. So, you know, it is quite complex, but again, it does come back to self, to go, hang on, well, actually, what are the beliefs, or what are the things that I thought they should be like? But really, is this really what sinks true to me? Is this really what sinks true to my soul? And how does my soul feel about this? This is really what I want. This is what, you know, if you all were just to close your eyes and you would just deeply feel into what would I like my relationship to look like? And then come from that place. And what do I need to do so I can create that? Where am I blocking? Where do I need to open up? What steps do I need to take so I can be ready for that? What steps do I need to take so I can create that? And really bringing it back to yourself, because maybe somewhere we are showing that up from that hurt or that belief or what your parents might have taught you. And again, maybe you're trying so much not to be like that. But then also you are blocking.
And that's still the same problem, isn't it? In its own way, if you're blocking it completely. But it is interesting, like, you know, just kind of pick up the point. Like, you make a very valid point in that, I suppose when you're starting to enter that relationship, we're actually almost carrying a whole heap of somebody else's luggage. and we don't even realize it. Like, it's a backpack, and we know that backpack's got our water and stuff, and it's got our survival essentials, but we also, hang on, it's almost like they're going, it's like a guess who card. It's like, oh, you look at like the card that I should have here, I should be going with you. So it's almost like there's a conceived, imprint that we have. And I suppose that's why it can be hard, because it's just there. It's not, I suppose that's the subconscious, isn't it? It's just there. We're not really aware of it. And I suppose, and I think that's a fantastic thing to just stop and come from that centered space, just like you're talking about, because if you don't do that, I think you might kind of, otherwise they will override you. And I think that's a really, kind of powerful thing. I suppose, is that something like, getting into that space? At what point, what point would you say to somebody, how often should you check in with yourself? What I should look, is this when it should be before a relationship? Is this when we're just getting into the dating scene? Is this, when should we do this?
All the time. And I just quickly want to speak. I just noticed, I haven't been reading, but there's like a few people saying, look, I just feel too scared. My heart's blocked. I feel too scared to show myself. I'm really scared of getting hurt. And you know what? I can fully understand that. Of course, we know nobody wants to get hurt, and we keep ourselves safe. But also that safety, how does that feel in your body, keeping yourself safe? Can you feel like you're contracting or you're taking a step back, but it's blocking you somewhere? And what is that costing you? Like, what is that costing you? And I feel like that's where you have to start. What is you having that layer up or that fear? What is that costing you? And you're going to keep on going through that.
It's a big question, and I think you brought it up. It's like, and it is, even when you said it before, it's like, do you want this for the next 10 or 15 years? And, sometimes even for me at the time, I was like, oh, that's a reality check, isn't it? Because it is, because you've got to start thinking, because I suppose, it's, again, a bit of a balancing act of trying to look at the now and then also going, but hang on, do I want this for the long term? Because when you start thinking, that's 5 or 10 years, that's, if you look at 10 years, that's like 3,600, there's a lot of days in there. That's a lot of days to put up with that. And that's not some happy shit. Well, then I'll tell you what, that's going to be some crappy shit. So it's not exactly a great place to be in. Having to look through it. But, it's like, I suppose it comes down to pain and hurt, isn't it? I suppose, like, having a look at some of the comments here as well, it is a hard battle to work through in terms of doing that. Is there something that, people who are afraid to be vulnerable, is there something like they can do just to start that process? Not necessarily bring all the walls down, because it's like, we're not going to go to these walls with a wrecking ball. We're not going to be Miley Cyrus in this scenario. But is there something that you can suggest to just help themselves so that they can work on this to help bring those walls down?
Yeah. Well, first of all, what are you really scared of? Like, just thinking about what is the worst thing that could happen? And probably you might be scared of rejection. Maybe you might be scared of not being understood. Maybe you might be scared that your partner might say something hurtful. And first of all, just go, what am I actually really scared of? And again, with that fear, okay, what is that fear blocking me of experiencing? And what bravery do I need so I can overcome that fear? And it can just be, sometimes it's just as simple as just speaking it out loud. Or in that process, what do I need? What can I do for myself so I don't feel I need to start over? What do I need to do for myself so I can just still, maybe it's just something that you need to shift inside of yourself to feel like you're having that need met. But then also, if that's not the case, then just speak it out loud. I know it's hard because we have all these fears and all these layers of protection. But then again, like, what is the cost that you're not going to receive that? And maybe they might reject you. Maybe you might have that biggest fear come true. But also, would you rather live the way how you are and continue on like that? Or would you maybe see if there's just a slight opening of a door?
Yeah, it's just like, it's just interesting to read these comments and, working through it, and like fear is a big, big word. And I suppose, when it comes to matters of the heart, it's something that we don't want to, we don't want to be hurt in that space. over and over again, in regards to that. But, let's just say it's also interesting too, like, and I'm pretty sure there's people here, and even yourself maybe got to this point where you've done some of this internal work and you've gotten to this point and go, right, I feel like I've got myself sorted. I'm ready to get myself out there and away we go. And you're going, I've got my list. I've got my checklist of 1 to 10. It's like, away we go. But then all of a sudden, yes, you have a nice dating, you kind of connect and you form a relationship. But then, then you start to roll into that relationship, and then that relationship is all nice and it's going along quite, lovely and whatnot. But what happens when all of a sudden you're in that relationship, you stop, and then it's like, hang on, the things that I really wanted out of this relationship aren't quite eventuating. So when you come back and have a look at that list, let's say you might be 3 years in, you're going, I'm really not achieving the top 5 of that list. Why does this happen in our relationships where, like, we do some of this internal work, we get ready, and then all of a sudden the things that we really do, we have in our mind, we're ready to go, and all of a sudden they still don't quite happen. Why is this so hard? Why is it hard for as an individual, when we hop into a relationship, why is it hard to get what we really want out of it?
Yeah, I mean, there's a few different factors. There's a chemical hormone called PEA. And when you first meet somebody, that it's top, like that chemical hormone that you just can't keep your hands off each other. You want to be really close. And, just when you first you feel deeply in love. And usually it's for about 18 months to 2 years. And then after that, it will slowly start to fade. And comfort sets in.
Is PEA is probably AKA honeymoon period.
Exactly. But there's a hormone that's responsible for that.
I always wonder why. I always say to people, it's like, I've always said, if you don't know what's happening within 3 years, you're definitely not going to know. Like, you'd know by 3 years. That's always been my magical figure. Maybe it's got something to do with the chemistry as well. So, but yeah, sorry. I was like, there we go. So, but the honeymoon period.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Yes, we'll keep going. Sorry, that was just a little epiphany moment for myself there.
Yeah. So there's definitely that. And after that, at first, like, they can show up in certain ways and you go like, oh, well, it's probably not 100%, but it still feels really good. So we may as well just stay for a bit longer and just see what happens. And then after the, 1.5 to 2 years, you might go, well, hang on, now that hormones faded and let's be honest, there's just no longer what it was. And that's usually when a lot of relationships will break away or fall apart. But also because it requires work then. Like, you have to then work on the relationship. And usually we become a bit lazy because comfort sets in. And, it's nice just to sit on the couch and watch a movie.
I'm waiting for you to say, so go down the chemist, ask your chemist for you get a vial top of a PEA, and off we go again. If only were that easy.
If only were that easy, exactly. So it's just then it requires work, and then it comes down to, do you both want to put in the work? And you both have to have both fit in. If one person has one foot out, it's just not going to work. Like, it's just both people are just going to say, of course, every now and then we will have doubt. Is this really what I want? But I also believe that I've been there myself. Is this still what I want? Is this still really what I want? But also then I look at, well, hang on, what's not working for me and what is? And then I know what I need to work on.
It's a big thing. And I suppose it is interesting to see that, because it goes from, we have that connection, that physical connection, obviously, like you said, the hormones running through our body. But then, what do you say? It was 2 years, you said, about like it kind of starts to dip a little bit?
2 years.
Yeah, okay. So and that's mean, I suppose you really do enter a whole new phase of relationship, because all of a sudden you've now got to connect as not just as people attracted to each other, but you have to connect as personalities. And it kind of throws it into, and I suppose that's when you start going, should we move in together? Should my toothbrush be at your house or something like that?
Yeah.
So those kind of particular kind of conversations that do happen around that. But, but it is, I think in quite a few things, it is like you reach a level of complacency. Things kind of do, I suppose, it's like the heat gets turned down. Instead of being on the boil, it goes down to a simmer. And, most relationships will kind of struggle. So because of that chemical and around that time frame, that's obviously the reason why we struggle to then kind of continue to maintain those priorities and relationship that we see because the relationship changes in actual fact.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And it just means you have to put in the work. And that's also when, you know, shit will show up that you probably in the beginning you go like, all right, well, you know, that didn't faze me, but then it just really gets to you. And again, all right, well, bringing healthy communication and then bring it also back to self-responsibility.
And there's no other way to bring about a PEA fix somewhere else along the line? Is this for some reason why the 7-year itch happens, because all of a sudden there's a whole hit of like a 7-year cycle of PEA running through the body or something? No, I don't want to know these things. I'm just interested in putting.
Yeah, no, it does fade, and it just means you have to work on it. And, you know, it's like a continuous readjusting of yourself, if your partner, and sometimes you'll be closer, sometimes you'll be a bit further apart, but you have to keep putting in the work. And again, it requires both people to do that.
Well, and that's me. It always takes two to tango, and it is. And at the end of the day, I think, you know, it is work. It's, you know, I think, you know, when you ask people, when they say, what's your number one, you know, piece of relationship advice? And, you know, especially when you start asking, you know, someone of the older generation or the baby boomer generation, you know, it's like, you know, sometimes it's like, oh, you know, I've heard people say, you know, it's like, I've just put up with them, you know, but we've managed to stick it out. I'm thinking, I'm not sure how valuable that is as a relationship advice. But then, of course, sometimes it is communication, it's compromise, it's all those things. And I think it's a valid point that it is work. Just on that note, do you find, you know, with that, because today's society is very, very different. You know, we've got technology. We're more connected globally than we ever have been before in the history of mankind. But I think, you know, in that sense, but even though we're connected, but we're not actually present. Does this affect, or do you find this helps relationships? You know, because today's society, you know, we know what it's like to be on Facebook or Instagram and people chasing the likes on their page or their Instagram profile because they want the dopamine hit, because all of a sudden, and that's proven studies with that chemistry, those hormones kick in and they give us this, oh no, I need to check my post. How many more likes have I got on that post? You know, and all this kind of stuff. So, but does this, with all this technology and this kind of instant gratification, have you found, does this hinder or does this help with today's society with this? Because, you know, with the instant gratification aspect.
Yeah. And, you know, before I answer that, just quickly, you said, you know, you had couples go, I'll just put up with them. And I think, you know, it is actually
old stock and barrel. That's it.
To a degree, yeah, because I think there's like a real art in doing that, accepting the other person for who they are.
Yes.
And also when the other person is reacting or acting or showing up in a certain way, often we take that personal and we create it as ours, to just go like, right, that person is just experiencing emotion. I don't have to take responsibility for that. It's just their emotion. And just keep creating that. Maybe just watch them. You can even find out, well, we can even ask, how can I support you right now? But often what we do is we also take it on as ours. So if a person is showing up and maybe they're angry about something, or they're speaking in a certain tone or whatever, or they're just experiencing some sort of sadness or frustration, often what we do is we create it, oh my God, like I'm to blame, and we feel blame. But to go like, right, okay, this is just what they're experiencing. And you could have done something completely different. It might have still set them off in a different way, or in that way, to go, okay, this is yours. And maybe just to watch and go like, well, I can see why you're hurting right now because of whatever. I can see why that will bring up some hurt or anger or frustration or whatever that is. And then go like, okay, can I support you right now? Is there anything that you need? You want me to leave you alone? Great. I'm not going to come and fix you. I'm not taking the responsibility for your emotions. And that I find is really a game changer. Accepting the other person for who they are, and also accepting their emotions and their experiences, and not making it yours. And I just wanted to say that.
I could tell there was that bee in your bonnet there.
That was a big one for me.
Yeah.
That was a big one for me, because caretaker, oh, what do you need? And now you're being angry or something's frustrating you, and then I'll feel the blame. okay, well, all right, you're being angry. Fair enough. I can see why that's making you angry. And once I took that step back, I'm like, right, I'm now not reacting either. And we're not getting into this argument of back and forth. So that was really,
you're not headbutting.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that was a big one. I could see the passion for you wanting to get
Yeah. Had to get it out. Had to get it out.
Yeah, no.
And for dating, yeah, being online and obviously modern relationships, everything like before it used to be, let's get married and be together till death does us part. It was more out of duty and survival. And now it's because we've evolved a lot. Now we want to get married because of love. And when you're dating now, it's like, well, there's so many choices and there's so much out there. And then there's the internet. And I really believe today is a lot harder to meet somebody than it's actually ever been before. There's also beauty in that, because I feel that, we can experience deep love and we can experience deep intimacy and we can experience all these things. And it also actually makes us want to work on ourselves. But yeah, it's really hard. It is really hard because there's choices out there. And, right now we go like, okay, this doesn't work anymore. You're not helping me having my needs met. So next person. And, there's a turnover. Exactly. Turnover relationships really quick. And I'm all about being happy in your relationship, and you shouldn't stay in one that's not fulfilling your needs whatsoever. But also I feel like that we've also stopped working on things. And again, taking that self-responsibility, which I really feel is a game changer that makes us go like, right, if I'm taking responsibility and I open up to new possibilities, then maybe this person is not what I think as bad as they are. The relationship is maybe not as troubled because I'm removing the blocks that I need to take responsibility for.
And just on that last note, probably a nice note to finish off. It is, and it's nice. It is interesting, and I'm very much in agreement. I think it'd be harder. I'm lucky I'm not in that boat, and I wish never be, because it's like, it just looks like a nightmare trying to.
It's a jungle.
It is. It's more than that. It's like, they say there's plenty of fish in the sea. I tell you what, that's one big ocean. And there's quite a few of them. They've all got .com at the end of it. And it's quite tricky in that. But of course, it might be harder. But so it does. It's a fair point. If it's a little bit harder to find that, then here's a question. Then where does someone turn to? What's your advice? Where do they go to find love, or what should they do to help find their love in their life?
Yeah. Well, you can find it everywhere. You can find it at a supermarket. You can find it online. You can find it at a party. And I think the key to that is just be yourself. I really think, we then go like, okay, well, I shouldn't make the first step, but I really like that person. And you're not doing that, but just be yourself. I think cut up all the crap about the shoulds, the shouldn'ts, and just be yourself. And if you can show up and just being yourself, I know that's probably hard because, again, you might be fearful of rejection, all these things, but also that's probably a great gateway into the relationship if it does work out. And if they're not wanting to commit, okay, great. Don't keep on holding on to them. I see that so often. I'm like, seriously, you're just letting all your boundaries, your whole value, your whole self-worth, you're just letting it drop because you're just holding on to that person, but that person's clearly not available to you. So what happens if you were just to relax and you're just yourself? Are they coming to you then? Great if they are. And if not, let them go. Let them go. Intense chemistry, that may not be your true soulmate.
Well, and as we've discussed, it may be just one of the many points on a list. And, it's definitely going to take more than 1 out of 10 to, make it a pass for a proper partner or relationship, I'd imagine. So, it's a big thing. But anyway, Nat, I know, I just want to say thank you so much for your time today. It has been absolutely insightful. A lot of stuff there, working through it. Just to let everybody know, you can find out more, or you can get in touch with Nat through her website. She's on Instagram, of course, but her website, nataliesommer.com. Just to let you know, it's Natalie with a TH and it's Summer with an O. So, but I'll put it up on their blogs and the posts later on. But absolutely wonderful to talk to you. And of course, those who are part of the Pearls of Wisdom group and community that I have running through my site, you're going to be fortunate enough. We're going to have a nice, wonderful Q&A in the the very near future with Nat. So it's going to be much more open, and you get to really pick her brain. As you can see, she is full of knowledge, and she can absolutely help you to work through or answer some of those questions that you might have. So stay tuned for that email that is coming up. And if you're interested in joining that, you're more than welcome to join Pearls of Wisdom, which you can do on my website, peterwilliamsmedium.com. Not a problem. So again, thank you so much for your time, Nat. Just before we do wrap it up and finish it here, I just need to ask one question. If there is one pearl of wisdom that you'd like to leave with everybody, what would it be?
Yeah. Love yourself, and understand your values, your worth, and your boundaries.
Awesome. Again, thanks so much again for your time, Nat.
Thank you so much for having me, and thank you to everybody that's been joining live today. And yeah, it was really great, Peter. Thank you for the conversation.
Thank you.